Hi, and welcome back to Just Ask the Question. I'm your host, Brian Karen. With me today, political commentator, writer, blocked on social media for a decade by Donald Trump, Tara Dublin. Tara, thanks for joining me. I've been wanting to have this conversation with you for a while. Here's
It's
the
been a
first
long time coming.
since I rock and rolled. Ooh. Anyway,
Ooh,
been a long time since I did the straw. I'm going to do Led
it's
Zeppelin
true.
now. All right, so here's my
You can
here's
quote
my
Led
opening
Zeppelin to me
question.
endlessly. Yes.
There you go.
Just ask.
So here's
Just
my
ask the
here's my
question.
big question. Yeah, well, here it is. What do you what do you think coming out of the elections on Tuesday?
Oh, I feel so good about it. I was so encouraged. I was actually out on Tuesday night and I'm like casually looking at my phone. I was like, "Oh, hey, Spanberger won. That's awesome. Oh, hey, Mikey Sherrill won. That's amazing. Oh my God, this. Oh, holy shit, what?" That was like my entire night watching Democrats win over and over and over all night long. And then as soon as Mom Donnie was declared, I was dancing around the room I was in. I was super
So
excited. I'm up someone who believes in progress and moving the country forward. So, and I have relatives in New York City, and yes, Tara Dublin is actually a Jewish girl. I don't know if you can see this, but yes, I'm a Jewish girl, 100% Ashkenazi on both sides, all the way back. And I'm excited about the future of New York City for my family that lives there, for my niece who just moved into the city, for everyone who lives in New York, and especially someone who grew up in New Jersey in the 70s and 80s, watching Manhattan get this boost of new energy and new ideas from someone who's young and energetic and excited about making the city more livable for everyone. Um, so
and
I'm
to what
encouraged. I'm encouraged at the same at watching MAGA just collapse and being unable to cope with the loss, and they can't spin it. That's an added bonus of winning. Is their posturing has really been, it's taken a hit because they don't really have a leg to stand on at all. They have nothing, and
what about
so
those who
we
say
can
that
build on that.
doing that? What about those who say that the Democrats have become too in your nose with it, that they aren't willing to accept MAGA, and that they should be reaching out to MAGA, and that instead of telling them how much they suck, they should welcome them to the big tent, and
You know
that the
what? They've been
Democrats are
saying that
not.
for a
Wait a minute,
decade.
let me finish. Wait a minute, let me finish because this is from a Republican who wanted me to ask this question of anyone, so I'm going to
Mhm.
finish. What about though? They say that the Democrats are spiking the football too early. That it wasn't a touchdown. This wasn't a destruction of MAGA. It's a first down, and the Democrats have been losing for a long time, and they still don't want to face it. The floor is
No,
yours.
no, no. Well, every accusation is a confession. Okay, so MAGA was promised winning and have been handed nothing but L's this entire year, and I still contend that this regime is illegitimate. They bragged about stealing the 2024 election. They bragged that they didn't need anybody to vote. They bragged that they already had all of the votes, and it's still a year later very frustrating for me that there was no investigation, that there was no demand for a forensic audit of at least the swing states, because it's statistically impossible for any candidate to win all 7 swing states on election night. And we saw all of that. And so we're in a moment where the American people delivered a message to the Republican Party, which is, we're done. We're done with Trumpism and we're done with MAGA. And we saw that with No Kings, and we're going to see that again in the next No Kings. But there's a new poll that NBC News did, and I'm not always like keen on polls because it's a small sample. I've never been polled, and you don't really know who they're talking to. The new statistic is that more Americans support the No Kings movement than the MAGA movement. And I think that's a really important thing to know. And we found that out right before Election Day. So I was very optimistic going into Tuesday. I was paying attention, and where people should be the most encouraged is in the red states where we flipped seats. Because as our friend Hal Sparks says, Democrats do not get points for keeping blue districts blue. Democrats get points for flipping red districts to purple and purple districts to blue. And that is what we're seeing. And that's what we saw. We saw districts flipping, seats flipping in Mississippi and in Georgia. And we saw a woman win in Virginia for governor, and we saw minorities stepping up, and we saw candidates of color in the Democratic Party winning, and younger candidates and progressive candidates. And so, what that is a message to the Republican Party as well as the Democratic Party. Americans are hungry for progress and change, and they are also fully blaming Republicans for the Epstein shutdown, as they rightfully should, because the shutdown is being caused by the Republicans protecting Trump. There is no other reason
Well,
for it.
yeah, that no, we know Donald Trump doesn't. I'm not going to get into that too deep, other than to say that Donald Trump could not possibly care less if the government opens back up. He already said he got his one big beautiful bill, and that's all he needed. And yesterday, when he was speaking publicly, he said, it doesn't have to come back. I'm fine with the way things are. I guess we should bring it back. So Donald Trump doesn't really care. So I mean that's not
We
even
already knew that.
a topic of discussion for me. But my question is, after reading what the Republican wanted to ask a Democrat, and I asked you, there is a legitimate concern among the middle of the road voters and independent voters that we find a less divisive way to engage in our political conversation. That we need to be more cohesive.
Okay. All
Do
right.
you
Well,
do
then
you
I
think that? Do you agree?
I absolutely agree that we could be talking about politics a lot better than we are, but the issue is that Donald Trump flung his loaded diaper all over our political norms a decade ago. And the discussion has devolved into responding with memes and sharing
So
AI videos of
how
him
do you
taking a crap.
how do
So, what I would ask is for the Republicans to elevate the conversation because they're not. They have devolved into juvenile discussions attacking their opponents with memes and ludicrous accusations that aren't true. They're pushing lies. If you want an elevated discourse, you have to bring that to the table. I am someone for 10 years who has been completely just dragged by MAGA every single day, harassed. I'm a walking MAGA bingo card as far as they're concerned. I'm Jewish. I'm a Democrat. I'm single. I'm a woman. I live in Portland. I have cats. So, they
wait,
look
wait, wait, whoa,
like
whoa,
me.
whoa, 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 whoa,
So,
whoa, whoa. How many cats? How many cats?
just two. Just two. It's a normal
Oh,
amount of
well, then
cats.
you're not a cat lady yet. They can't
Tell
drag
them
you for
that.
being a cat
Tell
lady
them that.
till you have
Oh,
three or
but they
four.
do. Oh, but what they do. But they do. And here is what I would say. I'm old enough to remember. You're old enough to remember when people were able to
I'm
disagree
not.
politically without. I didn't say mature. I said old enough.
No,
We
no, no,
can
no.
recall. We can recall a time where political opponents were able to disagree respectfully without threatening each other with death threats, which is where we have devolved to, and where there's not
So
a
who
cult
goes
like
first?
MAGA needs to fucking grow up. These people who are, especially the MAGA members of Congress, because and we mentioned Nancy Pelosi. Um, she's a shero of mine and has been for a long time, and she is not running for reelection. And the way that they treat her these days is very, very different from the way they treated her when she was originally brought in as speaker. And if you go back and you watch the passing of the torch from John Boehner to Nancy Pelosi, and he is so proud in that moment, and he's crying because his daughters are going to be able to see a woman stepping up and be Speaker of the House for the first time. And we have fallen so far from that time. And I encourage everybody to watch the documentary that Nancy Pelosi's daughter did about her called Pelosi in the House, where you can watch the rise of her political career, the way she handled herself on January 6th and subsequently, for the reality of what our politics used to look like pre-Trump, because he came in, he bullied
I
the
agree with all
media,
that, but
right?
who's
And
gonna do first? Who's
well,
gonna be the first
Democrats
that I
try, right? Right? Remember when Michelle Obama
okay.
said, when they go low, we go high? We tried to do that. It doesn't land with them because they aren't invested in the truth. And that's the biggest issue
Well,
here. If
so how do you
you're
deal with
it,
it?
you with the truth. You have to come back with the truth. And the truth is the thing that matters to me the most. And so when I'm writing on my Substack, every headline that I've been using lately is Tara tells the truth. because I do. I don't care who the truth is about. I don't care if it's about a Democrat, an independent, or a Republican. If you're up to fuckery, I'm going to say so, and I'm going to call you out for it. And
All
if,
right,
like,
Tara,
going,
tell the truth. Tara, tell the truth.
telling the
What's the
truth,
biggest sin of the Democratic Party? What's the
not
biggest sin of the
fighting
Democrat?
harder, not fighting harder. You can fight cleanly and fight hard. You don't have to fight dirty to be effective, but you need to fight stronger. Like, we need a united front and we need a unifying message, which is the thing that we hear over and over again. So what we need, and I think you and I have discussed this on other podcasts,
Yeah.
we need a daily Democratic press briefing overseen by a Democratic press secretary, not a member of Congress, not anyone who maybe has political ambitions to run in 26 or 28 or 32, somebody whose job it is every day to, after Caroline lies to the press, there is a press briefing held by the Democrats over at the Capitol that, you know, as well as I, people will show up to see what they're going to talk about. And it needs to be someone who can handle those stupid questions from a Newsmax or an OAN, as well as they can handle the smart questions from members of the media who are desperate to get a truthful answer from anybody in the government. And so we're at a
I would say
moment where
factual, but I'll go with that. Yeah.
factual,
You know me.
yes. If we are stay with the facts, stay with statistics, stay in reality. And the reality is that the Republicans are illegally withholding SNAP benefits right now from Americans. It is the obligation of the party in power to continue to feed Americans. There has never been a pause in SNAP benefits since its inception. Never. Not even during
Right.
previous shutdowns, not even during Trump's first shutdown, which, by the way, is now the second longest shutdown in history, because this shutdown is now the longest. So
Well,
congratulations,
by the way,
Republicans.
no, wait a minute.
You've got
No,
the
you
two
haven't gone far
longest.
enough. He owns 1, 2, and 3, the top 3
Mazel.
shutdowns. In fact,
Mazel,
we have
MAGA.
not had
Congrats.
we did not have a shutdown in government for the first 200 years of our government. I believe the first one came under Clinton and or briefly under Reagan. And then but Donald Trump, we've had more shutdowns under Donald Trump than any
Weird.
other president, and for
What a
longer times.
successful
But my
businessman
question
said
is,
no one
so
but him.
yeah, so here's my question on that. So
Mhm.
if you had a member of MAGA sitting across from you right now, and they said
Mhm.
to you, "Why do you hate me? You don't even know me." What would you say
I
to
don't
them?
hate them. I don't. That's the other thing, is I don't hate them. I hate what Trump did to them. He lied to them. He deceived them. He conned them. He grifted them. He promised them a whole lot of things that he's never once delivered on. And the whole reason they remain loyal to him is because he gave them the permission to be as openly hateful as they wanted to be. Like, all of that hate was just boiling under the surface, and now it's out there, and they don't want to have to go back. And they're really
I think,
embracing, and they gleefully enjoy their hate, because it's what, and they're,
well, I
they
think
have
you're
this,
right to an extent.
yeah.
I have MAGA relatives and friends, and when you
Mhm.
talk to them, yeah, they've embraced that, but they also feel like there's a legitimate reason for them to feel unappreciated by the Democratic Party. They say, and I'm quoting
Well,
them, that
mhm.
that the Democrats have not embraced them, and that they dictate to them. And while they may actually come to the right solution, they don't like being preached at. So they feel that the Democrats are elitist and not the big tent that they claim to be. So what do you
You
tell
know,
them when you hear that?
it's 100% hypocritical. Every accusation is a confession. Please show me the transparency in the Republican Party. It doesn't exist. So when they do this,
Well,
it's,
no
it's
shit,
projection. It's full on projection. If there was a MAGA person
but what do
sitting
you
in front of
tell
me,
them?
I would say, what I tell them is this: I don't want you to die because of Donald Trump. I don't want a single American to die from Donald Trump's tariffs or his lack of health care policies or the fact that he's deliberately starving Americans right now. Nobody should die because of the United States government. Like, no American should be under the threat of the United States government. That's a humongous disconnect. And that's what they don't get. And so what I would tell them, and this is what I do tell MAGA people on Twitter, where I still go and I still try, even though, and I don't waste my time with the fake accounts. I do it with people who are real, and I do it with members of Congress. The bottom line is that people need to eat, and it is our right to eat. And our government should not be starving Americans because Trump is in the Epstein files. Democrats
There
would love
you
would love nothing
that.
more. Okay, so here's what I know. Here, and by the way, I live in Portland, so I'm very lucky to have a very strong Democratic delegation here in Oregon. And we have two wonderful senators, Wyden and Merkley, and my local representatives are also fantastic. And I went to a press conference that they held a couple of weeks ago, just before the shutdown, and they were worried about, healthcare and SNAP benefits and all of that. And so it was a real focus on healthcare. But what I said to them when I was able to ask a question, I said, it's my contention that Republicans and Donald Trump don't care about our health care. They don't care if we eat. And they are using health care and hunger as leverage because they think that bleeding heart
As a
liberals will
weapon.
just cave to feed people and take care of them. Now, as much as Democrats want Americans to have their health care affordable and their SNAP benefits and their EBT cards to be filled to the brim, Democrats are not going to sell out their own constituents to make that happen. And all it would take is for Republicans to give in on the credits for health care, to make it affordable for their own voters to pay for health care. Their own voters are suffering. Their own voters and the other thing is red states always depend on blue states to survive because red states fail their constituents over and over again when it comes to education and, benefits and all of that. So what I have been doing, I try to be productive with this because I don't want to complain without offering solutions. And so, like last week, I took 4 hours out of my day and I went through every single state alphabetically. I screenshot how many people in that state receive SNAP benefits. And then I tagged every Republican member of that state and I asked them, what are you telling your, like using Oregon as an example? Our Republican representative, Cliff Bentz in District 2, is part of the problem. I asked my my Democratic representatives, will he sit down and speak with you? And they said no. They have reached out to him to talk about healthcare because it's all being held hostage in the House. So I reached out to Representative Bentz as a citizen, a constituent in Oregon. And I was like, why would you hurt the 757,000 Oregonians who rely on SNAP benefits? What do you get from Trump that is worth selling out your own constituents? Because that's what you're doing. You're telling your constituents that the Epstein files are more important than feeding their children. And Republicans never respond because it's true.
Well,
these are facts and they don't like these facts and they can't dispute them, which is why you have Mike Johnson pretending that Democrats are responsible when he is not doing the basic functions of his job, which is swearing at Alita Grijalva and reopening government and giving Americans what they voted for, which is the continuation of their benefits, affordable health care. They did not vote for Republicans to play fast and loose with their livelihoods. They did not vote for Republicans to put Trump over them. That's what Republicans are doing. So I would ask a MAGA person,
all that's given. All that's given.
You? So
you all have right. To ask that's
what's more important to them.
Well, I think it. Why do you think that? I would start with, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'd start sitting down with a MAGA person and saying, why do you think the way that you think? Break it down for me so I understand.
I do.
Because I
always ask.
Okay,
why.
I don't understand. I don't understand when presented with facts, and I know some will say, "Well, those are your facts," and I'll go, "Man, there's only that you can't get past." But most I have run across a lot of people who just feel like the Democrats preach and are elitist, and at least the Republicans listen to them. And on that note. No, but on that note, what my response is that I believe that you are correct that Donald Trump listens to you, but I think he listens to you to manipulate you. And here is why I think that. Show me where I'm wrong. Because I find that look, man, between you and me, we both know Donald Trump's a damn grifter. But
Right.
there are people who bought the grift, and it's far
Right.
easier to grift people than to convince them that they've been grifted, as wiser people than I have said. So I
Right.
always find that that's the
Yeah.
only place I can reach them, and sometimes not even then. But
Well, I
that's
mean, if you
I
stay with facts and statistics and you show somebody, like I
and
tried to
they're going to
do
say
when
who's facts, who's statistics.
they
The
are
Earth is flat. The Holocaust never happened. Man didn't land on
right,
the moon,
right,
and
right.
chemtrails are
Well,
real.
right,
You're not going to
right.
get past
So,
that
I
with some
mean,
people.
if you're up against the cult mentality of whatever, it doesn't matter what you say. I love Trump and I'm sticking with him. Then you don't waste your time with a person like that, and you're like, well,
But I
okay,
think you're right.
okay.
Yeah, but the ones in the middle, I think you can. Independent voters and undecided voters, I think you can still
I don't
reach.
know how you're
But
undecided
all
at
right,
this
so
point.
here's my question.
Hmm.
Here's my big question. We were wanting to discuss this. We talked about it before we came on the air. You think that reporters don't know how to question Donald Trump?
100%.
Give me an
That is a
example
hundred.
of what do you mean by that and how you would do it differently.
Well, you know as well as I what it's like to be there. You know better than I what it's like to be in his presence. And I know that he tries to use his physicality to intimidate,
I
right?
just like the way you
You
phrase
try
that.
you
Sorry,
try.
to
You
be in his
try.
presence.
You've been in his presence. I have not been in his presence. And again, I was blocked by him
Okay.
on Twitter 10 years ago. So that means I know how to get under his thin skin. And what he did from the start was bully because he's small and weak and spineless and he doesn't want to answer questions. So what he does is he attacks the questioner and that becomes the story instead of him not answering the question because he doesn't answer. He just blah, right? It's just word vomit until someone stops him or he gets distracted by another bright and shiny thing. So my issue is that they let him do that to him. They let him bully them. They let him control the narrative. And the media is the one who's like, we ask the questions, you answer. Oh, you're not answering? Then I'm going to stop asking. You should walk away if someone's not playing, you stop the interview, you walk away. You're like, oh, well, if you can't answer the question, and they'll be like, what? So if I were given an opportunity to question him, I would just start with something that's a really basic, simple, straightforward question that everybody wants to know the answer to, but have never heard an answer for. I would love any reporter to say to him, why won't you let Mike Johnson swear in Adelita Grijalva? That's a very straightforward question because we know he won't,
Oh, I know
right?
exactly what the
We
answer
know
is.
why. We know why. I want to hear him give the answer. And then when it's not the answer, when he moves the goalposts, which is a very MAGA tactic, and I understand how they work and how they use semantics and how they try to change the narrative and they try to distract you by moving the goalposts. You have to try to stay in that realm. So, like that time we saw Yamiche asking him a question, and he was like, he had just attacked her. He will attack the messenger every time. And instead of letting him do that, the next person on the press line should say, actually, I would really like an answer to the question Yamiche asked you. And then the next person says that. I would like that answer too. And then you reiterate the question and you hammer him and you say, why won't you answer this question? Why won't you answer that question? And look at the 60 Minutes interview that he just did. He's such a big fucking whiny baby. First of all, CBS paying him the $16 million because he didn't like Kamala's interview. That's bullshit. That is bullshit that the media has ever capitulated to him. You don't like the truth about you? Sorry, bozo. You don't control the First Amendment. And when you don't like
Well,
the truth about
all right,
yourself, maybe you try to change that. But I
hold
would
on. That
say
the point there.
what?
Hold on. The
What?
point there with the interview, and you're right churching it, but I'm gonna call out wrong pew. Here's what I think
Okay.
is wrong. Donald Trump got upset with what was basically he saw the unexpurgated interview, the transcript of the interview, and
Mm-hmm.
said he didn't like the way the interview was edited, and therefore he filed suit. And they
Tough
settled
shit.
because Paramount at the time was up for sale, and Sherry Redstone wanted to make a sale, so they settled so they could sell it because they didn't want any government pushback. The problem is Every interview is edited, every one of them. And he only knows what was left out because guess what? CBS published the actual transcript. So no information was lost. For time, things were consolidated. So now, flash forward, and he sued, and they settled.
Of course.
They sold. Barry
But
Weiss
why?
now is the
That's
executive
my
editor
question.
of
I
CBS
know.
News.
I
Yeah,
know.
is the executive editor of CBS News. Donald Trump goes on the air, does an interview with CBS. They edit it. They publish a transcript like they did with Kamala Harris, but he's happy. So what you find in this movement, A, is that Donald Trump merely sued because he was unhappy with the edit, and B, now that he's happy with the edit and has control of it, he didn't sue. So I'm going to ask the Democrats among us, why aren't you suing CBS for editing the interview? It's exactly what Donald Trump did. Where's the lawsuit against them now? Because
Right.
it's the exact same behavior, the exact same thing done. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And facts being as they may, I like what you say about reporters following up on each other.
I
Um,
think it's important
that's
that they
one thing that
stand
we have not
together.
done very well.
It's really
That'll never
important.
happen.
But
That'll never
it's
happen. That report, no, it'll never happen. It
but
never has
why?
happened
But why? That's
because
the my questions always start with the word
no.
why.
Okay, and here's the answer.
Mhm.
We're competitive by nature to get the best information that we can for the people that
Right.
we work with. So it's
Right.
not often that you're going to find reporters, except, and with this caveat, in the White House briefing room, we have discussed, reporters have discussed prior to press conferences or, look, Donald Trump hasn't had a press conference since he's been in office. These are pool sprays, and I'm tired of them being
Right.
labeled as press conferences.
Me
But
too.
when we do have access to him. In the past, pool members have gotten together going, okay, this is what I want to ask. This is all right. I'll follow up on it if he, but that doesn't happen anymore primarily because most of the people that have the experience to ask those questions have been removed from the pool. The two most
Exactly.
important, probably two of the most and I'm sorry, institutional knowledge is gone, but two of the most experienced reporters from Reuters would be Steve Holland and Jeff Mason, and you don't see them in there anymore. And they were very good in the first administration about following up and asking questions. So the follow up doesn't happen. And as Joe Lockhart, who was the he was press secretary under Clinton for a while, said on numerous occasions, he says, Brian, when I got up there and you all started asking questions and then you would follow up on each other. I felt like, the laser was shining on me from 4 or 5, and I knew I had to get out of there because I couldn't
Wow.
answer. So that is correct. I do believe that. As far as walking off, I can't recommend that as a reporter. I'm not going to be the one that walks off. I'm going to be the son of a bitch that stands there because if I
Well, yeah,
leave,
that's the other
Donald Trump
tactic.
Donald Trump will stack the deck with people who love him, like he already has. And as long as I have the ability to ask him a question, I'm going to fucking stand there and stick it to him because that's
As
my
would
job.
I.
It's
As would I if I
their
could.
job to put, yeah, their job is, actually, you can, if you could probably get a day pass and go there. Uh, if they ever open
I
up again, because right now they're blaming the shutdown, the democratic shutdown, as they call it, for their
Oh, it's
inability
Democrat.
to let
They say
anyone in except the
Democrat, which is
pool.
annoying. Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah, they say Democrat
They'll
instead of Democratic.
right, which is so annoying. It's just
So
an
those, I
annoying
think
thing
you're
to
in the
think
right
about.
church area. I think you're in the right church area, but from being there myself, I think that the biggest problem is lack of institutional knowledge, lack of experience among reporters to do the
Hmm.
job that we're supposed to do when we're there. As far as the
Right.
question, I wouldn't ask the question that you would ask because I know what I know what the spin will be. The spin on Mike Johnson is going to be, well, I have no control over what the House does. And
Well, he said he
technically,
was the
that's
speaker. He said,
correct.
"I'm the speaker and
That
the president."
technically,
So, yeah,
yeah,
you do.
technically he's correct.
Yeah, you do.
And if he takes that tactic, you of course would return with the volley that you just mentioned.
Right.
But I have an even more basic question I want Donald Trump to answer. And my question to Donald, and I've tried to pose this on numerous occasions, if you are in fact a man of the people and work for the government of the people, how come the people did not get to see any plans before you decided to demolish the east wing
Oh, yeah. Oh,
of
God, I'm
our
so freaking
house?
mad about that. That is our house. Ours, not his. It wasn't Obama's house. It wasn't Biden's house. It wasn't Reagan's house. And the
Right.
small improvements that previous presidents did, like they were complaining about Obama. Obama expanded a tennis court, so, and then also had a basketball court. And Michelle Obama planted a
He
vegetable
he
garden. Everything was
actually
outside.
compared the MAGA people have actually compared building a expanding a tennis court and building a basketball court to demolishing 120 years of history in the East. And you know what, Tara?
I have
Here's the
look,
question I also want answered. And I
yeah,
don't know that, and I've asked it and I've not got an answer to it. But here's the question. And I think
mhm.
everyone in the country should ask this question.
I
What
wonder if it's the
happened
same
to
question I
everything?
have
All
too.
the
I have that
what
question
happened to
too.
all the what
Yes.
happened to everything that was historic in the East Wing? Where are the paintings? Where are the sculptures? Where's the carpet? Where's the desks? Where are the chairs?
Where are all of
Where?
the artifacts?
Because
Who logged them?
at the end of the last administration, the last 3 days of Trump's first administration, I, as hundreds of other reporters did, witnessed that administration looting the West Wing. They took photos,
100%.
they took paintings, they took
They took
sculptures, they took
they took
chairs,
top
and
secret
Donald Trump
documents.
took all the classified material. So I want to know what happened to the stuff in the East Wing.
Where
And no
I
one
would
has answered that
love
yet, and it's never been asked.
who have you asked? Have you actually asked anybody in the Trump administration that
Yeah, of
question?
course I've asked the White House on numerous
And what
occasions and I
and they
get
just don't
ghosted.
answer.
I get yes, they don't answer. I get ghosted or
Because they
they don't
can't
answer.
answer. You know what they did? He went in with a fucking bulldozer and knocked it down and without caring about preserving history. And and it's also the other thing that's infuriating other than, not knowing where our history went and if anybody logged it and why isn't it all in the Smithsonian already. It's the price of the Epstein ballroom keeps going up based on how many more private donors offer him money for favors. So first it was 200
Every one
million,
of
then it
those
was
private
250,
donors,
then it was 300, now it's 380, it's going to go up to 500 million because every single one is buying a favor. And that's absolutely abhorrent. And Republicans are silent on the visual destruction where it looks like, bin Laden actually was successful. Trump did what bin Laden couldn't do. They're silent on that. They're silent on all of these things that are hurting their own constituents. And it's incredibly frustrating. So if you're asking a question of Republicans, the question is why? Why are you choosing loyalty to Trump over the people who elected you? That's a great question
okay, and
because
let's
that is what they're doing.
and what do you think the answer? We'll finish up with that. What do you think the answer to that question is? Why do you think they're complicit?
Blackmail is the real reason. I think because we all remember back in 2016 when the Russians hacked the DNC and RNC servers and only released what they had on the Democrats and held on to what they found out about Republicans. And that's why Lindsey Graham got compromised on a golf course and why Marco Rubio now lives in Donald Trump's alimentary canal. And, who knows what else is out there about these terrible people? Who knows what's in Mike Johnson's prayer closets full of porn? Oh, I'm sorry. The accountability app, they are all in trouble for something. And what's the saying? Dead girl, live boy. I'm not really sure. It might be the other way around, but it's whatever he's got on the Republican, whatever the Russians have on the Republicans, whatever the blackmail is. I contend it is still not more important than preserving American democracy.
Well, they're not going to care about that,
Blackmail's
but I
a hell
think
of
you're
a
right
thing.
again.
Yeah.
I think you're right, church, wrong pew. I don't know if it's blackmail, but I do know this.
Oh, it's bad
I
shit.
do I do know this. When Richard Nixon fell from grace, Richard Nixon did not go to prison, but his attorney general did, and 8 other people that served in that, I believe it was
Mhm.
8 others, went to prison as well. Every single one of them that are complicit in this know damn well that Donald Trump will never spend a day in prison, and they are covering their ass as hard as they can to make sure that they don't. Now, whether it's blackmail or whether they just know that Donald Trump doesn't have to blackmail them, the evidence will be there to fuck them, and they don't want to get fucked.
Well, they're
So
complicit.
I think
They are all
they
complicit, and when
are.
we get we're
They're
going to
all
get our own
complicit. I
Nuremberg
agree.
trials. That's what we need to do.
Oh,
When Democrats return to power, we have
yeah.
our own version of the Nuremberg trials, and I was just following orders isn't going to work this time either. So,
It didn't work last
if
time. So as we
no,
come to the end of the day,
yes,
what would you like to plug?
I would like to plug my book, The Sound of Settling, a rock and roll love story. It's the greatest thing I've ever written, and I love it so much. And I am trying very hard to get a proper publishing deal because everybody who reads my book loves it, like Cameron Crowe and Ellen Barkin and other names I can drop. You can get it right now at TaraDublinRocks.com. If you're a literary agent, I'm an untapped writing goldmine. You can also catch me all across your socials. I'm Tara Dublin Rocks on Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, Tara Dublin Rocks 1 on Instagram, the number 1. And I would also ask you to join me tonight as I'm sitting in on Sirius XM Progress. And that guy is one of my guests tonight. So Brian and I are actually going to continue this conversation. Sirius XM Progress, channel 127 tonight. 9. I start at 9. You'll join me about 20 minutes later. That's 9 p.m. on the East Coast, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, and I'll be taking calls, and I'll be really interested to see if any of my MAGA trolls call in, because they're super brave on Twitter when they're calling me a libtard kike, but will they do that? Will they call in and use their real voices? They won't. They won't. But I'm ready for them if they do.
Wait a minute. All that aside, what's the rock and roll book about? Because there's me guitar. Okay. So
if we can push this out, this is the great. Okay, first of all, it really has nothing to do with politics. It is a rock and roll.
Go ahead, Carl. I'll give you a couple minutes here. Let's do it.
Thank you, because I never get to talk about my book, and I love it so much. Wait, I have a copy right here. The Sound of Settling, a rock and roll love story, and right here on the back is a blurb from Cameron Crowe. So it's in 2001.
Read the blurb. Read the blurb.
Read the blurb. Okay, the blurb says,
read the blurb.
Tara Dublin has that rarest of skills. She knows how to tell a story with startlingly funny and soulful elegance. Get lost in her world and her wonderful writing voice. You won't want to leave that world, and you shouldn't. Thank you very much.
Ooh, nice.
It is what I like to call the ultimate meta fan fiction, heavily stressing the word fiction. In 2001, I was at a secret Foo Fighters show at the Troubadour in Los Angeles, and this is 2001, before social media, before Twitter, before I could chat with Mark Hamill on the regular, as we know social media to be now. 2001, we were all on post boards and chat rooms and such, and I was active on the Foo Fighters post board, and they had a contest for just post board people to win this entry to this show at the Troubadour in LA. You had to get yourself there if you won. So I was one of the winners, and I went down there. It was my first Foo Fighters show, and at the time, I was married, and I only had one child, my son Jack, who is now 26, but was 2 at the time. So that's an important part to know, because I also did have a crush on Dave Grohl at that time, and Rox, I had just a history of
you and my sister and everybody else.
Right. And hot guy he was back in the day. And so we're there, the show starts, and you know how girls go to concerts and they're like, oh my God, the lead singer totally looked at me. So the lead singer totally looked at me. And then he says, I know who you are. And I was like, why? Why would Dave Grohl know who I am? I was on the radio here in Portland for 5 years, but that was before that happened. And I was just like this stay-at-home mom with a 2-year-old who liked the Foo Fighters. That's it. And for the rest of the show, he sang to me. He talked to me. His face was right here. He said my name at one point. I have an MP3 of that moment. And I'm just like, what? Why? And then I met him after the show, and he asked me to go out to get food with him. And I couldn't, because I had to get up early in the morning and fly back to Portland to my husband. So, Dave was single at the time, and I was not. So nothing ever happened, even though I saw him sporadically.
So this fiction is about if something happened.
This book is an unhappily married woman who does not have a child wins a contest to go see her favorite band, and she has a crush on the lead singer, and she's going to use that as a way to leave her unhappy marriage and kind of branch out on her own and live her own life and do her own thing as an independent woman. And it also takes place from 2001 to 2006. So it's that
Ah,
time. And we're, so like, I didn't want to be like,
so
and then so and so tweeted. So she goes to this show and she's like, I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I'm going to see this band and I'm going to go live my life in LA. And then the lead singer looks at her and is like, I love you. And she's like, oh my God, I love you too. And then she goes off with him. And then for a while, it's awesome because she's with the band and she gets to do all this cool stuff. And then about 2 years into it, she's like, hey, wait a minute. I wasn't going to do this. I wasn't going to follow another man through life. I was going to do my own thing. But she is now at a point where if she stays, she's compromising who she is. If she leaves, things are going to happen. So should I stay or should I go? Hence the title, The Sound of
great song.
Settling, because it's my favorite Death Cab for Cutie song. I've got a hunger twisting my stomach into knots, which is a great line. But it really is about how women are, regardless of who you marry, most times women are asked to make themselves smaller, to settle, to compromise, to accommodate and put others in ahead of themselves. And that's a very and as someone who used to be married to a doctor, I understand what that felt like. And also as someone who spent time on the radio, backstage with bands, seeing how bands interact, seeing how tour managers behave, seeing kind of the behind the scenes world. It's that. So it's a real, if you loved Almost Famous and Rockstar and Daisy Jones, it's that. And there's a lot of sexy sex in it. And it won't make you cringe because I've had people compliment me on that part. And I have also written a sequel because my readers demanded it because this book has kind of a cliffhanger. So they were like, where's the sequel? And I said, I will give you a sequel when I get a proper publishing deal. So here I am now
There
out in
you
the
go.
world trying to get a proper publishing deal. This is a self-published endeavor. I published it on Amazon KDP, not the greatest experience, not the greatest place. If you don't want to buy it on Amazon, which I don't blame you, you can order it from any independent bookstore, such as Powell's here in Portland, powells.com, or any indie bookstore
Best
you can order it.
bookstore on the
Best
planet.
bookstore
Best
ever.
bookstore
And
on
so
the planet.
what
I
I'm
love
trying to
Pals. I
do,
could spend an
right? It's the
entire
greatest.
day
You
in
spend
there.
a whole day there. And it is blocks from where I live. I can literally walk to Powell's whenever I want. It's very
Oh,
dangerous
wow.
and expensive.
Okay, so
But
as we close up, I just want to wait a minute.
everybody
Go
loves this
ahead.
book. And here's what I will say. This has to be probably the shittiest time to try to be promoting a book, right? And trying to land a book deal and trying to make
No,
something
no, no,
happen.
Kara,
At the same
you're
time,
coming
it's the
on to the
best.
holiday season. It's the
That's what I was about to
holiday
say.
season.
We're
It's the
coming up to the
best time.
holidays, and everybody needs a fun little escape from reality. This is a
There you
fun,
go.
sexy rock and roll love story focusing on kind of the wife's perspective, which we really haven't seen in the rock world. Is usually told from the dude's perspective. So there's that. And then if you're a Foo Fighters fan, which is a rough haul right now, but anyway, if you are, there's lots of Foo Fighters Easter eggs in the book too, which I had so much fun just kind of creating this universe and a history for the band and writing songs for them and coming up with stuff. And it was just like this fun creative endeavor that I started in the 2020 lockdowns because I'm not crafty and I wasn't going to make a sourdough starter. And now it's become this thing that Ellen Barkin wants to play the rock star's mom in an eventual streaming series, which I can visualize. I'm an untapped writing gold mine. There is money to be made here. My mind is worth millions. So I would say that if you're someone who enjoys the rock and the roll and the book reading, this is the book for you. It's called The Sound of Settling, a rock and roll love story, TaraDublinRocks.com. And if you know a literary agent or are one, let's make money. There is commercial
There you go.
viability here. Bring it. Netflix, HBO, let's get a bidding war going because I'm telling you right now, it would be so good. And I can see it all in my head. I cultivate a soundtrack on my phone so that, I know what things look like. I know what things should sound like. It is just getting that
Well, there
yes
you go.
person. It's the yes person
There-
that eludes me. So come to my life, yes person. The universe will reward both of us handsomely. That's what I say. And
And
also,
I'll just,
MAGA hates it when I succeed. They really don't like it when good things happen to me. So let's make something good happen.
I'll just end this broadcast by saying there's nothing better than listening to Christopher Walken introduce the Foo Fighters on Saturday Night Live.
I love
The
that.
Foo Fighters. The Foo Fighters. So
the story, and
Foo
Also, I
Fighters.
encourage you, go to YouTube and search the video of Dave Grohl telling that story, because Dave Grohl does a spot on Christopher Walken. Spot on.
There you
Great
go.
little
The Foo
anecdote. Great
Fighters.
little
All right.
anecdote. Foo Fighters. And
Well,
I will see you in just a few hours, my friend, and we can continue this
sounds great.
conversation and ask more questions tonight on Sirius XM Progress.
With that said, this is Just Ask the Question. I am your host, Brian Cameron. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and we'll catch you
Thank
next
you.
time.